It's Friday Eve, Thursday night for those who like to keep track of the days of the week. And I am Angel Martinez, and welcome to episode 195. And tonight we have a very important guest. As you guys know, the Harlem Globetrotters have been around since 1926, if I remember correctly. And people like Meadowlark Lemon, who was one of my favorites, Curly also as well. Lynette was also the first female that was part of the Harlem Globetrotters. So there was a lot of rich history behind the Globetrotters. And just like music, if you guys, everybody knows that you can have a point in life where things may not be right, or sometimes you just get up in the morning and there's something that want to motivate you. So you put on a certain R&B, maybe EDM, whatever the case may be, country music. The Globetrotters have been like that for many, many years, where they've brought a lot of fun, some wisdom, because obviously they share a lot of knowledge, the history behind it. There's so many things that we can talk about tonight with Michael Wilson. We'll also talk about being a University of Memphis Tiger. And as Ryan brought out a particular player from back in the day, which I'm pretty sure he'll go over again, but lots to get into. And don't forget also, Michael Wilson, also a co-host with Sandy with the Fifth Quarter podcast. And we'll also talk about his book as well and what you guys can expect out of his book as he continues to write it. So lots to get into. Also, the James Harden / Sixers saga continues. The schedule came out today. Does anyone really care? That question will be asked as well because, hey, it's Philly. It's what happens. And Ryan, I know, is licking his chops because he has called it for the last 2 years. So we'll see what happens with the Sixers. It is just something incredible. But with all that being said, 5 episodes away from episode 200, and I'm so glad that we have Michael Wilson part of the next 200 here because it's going to be just something phenomenal. Season 4 is underway. The NFL season tonight, the Eagles are playing versus the Browns. So those who are tuning away from that to view us, thank you so much. And don't forget also that you can view us not only on broadst.com, also over on AMP Radio, the home right here at Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, and also over on YouTube. So 4 different ways you can view and watch this show and listen in as well. So with all that being said, let's get the show underway. Michael Wilson, our guest, and later on, there will be a special guest that will appear on the second half of the show. So welcome all. Tonight, it is Thursday night. It is Broad Street South. Let's get the show underway. To the Kansas City Chief because once again, the hoodie is breaking out only because it is preseason football. There's a lot of injuries, Ryan, tons of injuries, but it is my co-host, Ryan F. Ryan, how are you this evening?
Doing great, Angel. I'm Ryan F. It's great to be with everybody this week. I haven't said that in a while. Angel kind of reminds me to say it every week. So Michael Wilson coming on. He's a man of many titles, and he can almost jump as high as I can. I'm just going to put that out there. So we'll have to get into it. A lot of questions to be asked. So let's bring him on, my friend.
That's okay. Listen, I was going to save it for later on, but Michael has, before I bring him on, because Ryan just brought up a good point, the world record holder of a 12-foot slam dunk. And I was going to say the most I'm going to be able to do is 12 inches of a vertical jump at my age at this point. But nonetheless, it is our special guest tonight and this evening. It is Michael Wilson joining us from his home studio. Michael, first of all, thank you for taking the time for being with us tonight. And congratulations also on the successful podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's not all me. It's my co-host. She does most of the legwork. So I can't take credit for it. So shout out to Sandy for all the hard work she does for our Fifth Quarter podcast. And thank you guys for having me on the show. It's an honor. Believe me, it is.
All right, you're welcome. And for those who are just tuning in, the former Harlem Globetrotter, former University of Memphis, and by the way, great job for you as far as going back and getting your degree and finishing up, because we know a lot of athletes start that road and some don't have the opportunity of going back because the road leads into different paths. So congratulations on going back and making sure you have your degree, which is, it's really important. That was the ultimate goal other than being a professional athlete, but making sure you go back and finish it up as well. And also now with the DC Department of Parks and Recreation, and It's funny because you hear Parks and Recreation again. If you go back to the show, I'm sure
Yeah.
it's been there might be a little mixed in that behalf when it comes to The Office. But before we get into other questions, what's it like for not only for DC because we know it's so busy down there. I mean,
Oh man.
it's absolutely insane all the time. Regardless of even what goes on in the world today, it's just between tourists, people love going down there. You got Silver Springs, Maryland, which is not that far away from DC. But what's it like for working for Parks and Recreation?
Oh, it's fun because in recreation you get to kind of be whatever you want to be. I'm a manager now, so I'm managing staff, and staff get to choose, what they want to be. You know what I mean? It's my job as a manager to support them. I kind of work for them. Managers really kind of work for their staff to try to make sure they get the things they need to succeed. So, it's exciting. It's fun. It's a new adventure every day. And I talked to one of my ex teammates that used to play. He played up here at the University of Maryland, and he's a businessman. He flips houses and things like that. And we were in this deep conversation, and we were talking about how do you get that feeling you got when you play basketball when you don't play basketball anymore. And he was like, when I close a business deal, when I make something happen, like I throw on this big event, like I work with the seniors, and we threw this event called Senior Fest, and it was like 3,000 seniors there this year, and the mayor was there and things like that. And I was like, wow, I was a part of this. I really made this happen. And that's the feeling that you get. And that's, what I've been doing so far.
Now, you bring up a great point with the seniors because so there's a video that I want to play as you talk about that because you hit it dead on something. So I'm going to have you end the video playing, and then I want you to come back after. And for those, unfortunately, who are listening in on sports radio, I will describe the video afterwards, so you'll be able to hear it because there is some audio that goes along with it. But visually, we'll explain it afterwards. So
All
here's
right.
the video.
Yeah, that's so wow. That's we were doing a cruise. It was an intergenerational cruise. It was an intergenerational cruise. I think one side is where the seniors were dancing and having a good time, and we went down at the bottom of the boat, and the teenagers were all cool standing around, and they were too cool to dance, man. And so they're just some of the things that we do with the seniors, man. They love to dance and have fun. So I'm enjoying myself. Even when I played with the Globetrotters, I used to say, I can't believe I'm getting paid for this. And it's kind of the same thing with this. I can't believe I get paid to put on events or just having the opportunity to create policies and give the people what they need.
Right. Well, in the same way, I think a lot of folks, and I know with a couple of people that I work, they like to tease me all the time. It's like, oh, here comes a senior, here comes the oldest guy in the group, and for me, I have fun with it, and it doesn't bother me. But as time has gone on, in the same way why I described
It
the Harlem,
bothers me. It
yeah,
bothers me.
does it?
I started getting letters from AARP in the mail. I was like, hey, man, I threw it in the trash. I was like, wrong address. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny. I got my first one when I was 40. Don't ask me why. I'm like, how in the world do you get? I thought it was supposed to be like when you're 50 and above. But I'm like, okay.
Yeah, they start early, man. Seniors here in DC, they start at 55. So I'm 51 now, actually, man. So there you go, Ryan. And so I'm just like, wow. They have the Senior Olympics. They have the Senior Games. And our seniors, shout out to our senior division. We went to the Nationals, man, 2 years in a row and won the NSGA Cup, the National Senior Games Cup. We won the most medals per athlete out of all the participants all around the country, man. So shout out to our seniors, especially our swim team, man. They kicked butt this year in Pittsburgh in the senior games.
Oh, wow.
That's something to look forward to then.
Yeah, no, I'm not playing it. Don't do me like that, bro. Oh, okay, you, okay.
Me, yeah. I'm going to be 55 in 2 weeks, man. So.
There you go, man.
Hey, well, what's the latest craze? What, bocce ball now? What's the
pickleball?
Pickleball,
Yeah,
there you go.
Pickleball, that's the big craze, man. I just changed my pickleball shirt, man. That's the fastest growing sport in the nation. And people think it's new, but it's not. It's been around for ages.
Right.
And so, everybody's playing. It doesn't matter the age now. Everybody's really getting into it, man. And our pickleball program, out of our senior games, our pickleball program, we had over like 250 participants in there. So it is big.
My ER deductible's too high. So.
Well, I know there's a group. I can't remember if the guy's from New York, but he's buying all the former Bed Bath and Beyond buildings and turn them all into indoor. Uh, uh, Good Lord,
Pickleball.
we just said the game pickleball courts. So it's going to be interesting the way he's going to end up doing it.
I love it, man, because they're thinking along the future. They're constantly changing. You know, as humans and us, man, we always like to say kids like routine and
Right.
babies, but we like routine as well. And there's one thing that's constant in life is change. And it's very difficult, especially the older you get, for something change. You can change someone's schedule for them to go to work, and they just get discombobulated and don't know what to do. You know what I mean? So change is happening in your personal life and your professional life. So it's always happening, man. And we just got to prepare for it. We got to do a better job as humans preparing for it.
That we do, and it brings up a good point because you talk about the change, and there's a couple things I guess I'll revert back to, and then we'll get into some other questions as well. But you talk about change. How difficult is it, Michael, for an athlete when they're once they get ready to walk away from the game or coaching, whatever the case may be, that transition period, because there had to be a point the same way in your life, and I know you talked about it in the podcast. But there has to be a point in time when you wake up and you just feel like, is it time? Like, is there a moment that that you feel like, okay, it's time to walk away, and then the transitioning from the athlete over to now the civilian side of the house?
Well, I think nowadays with the NIL things, like I think athletes are starting to think different. They're thinking of themselves as a business. So I think it'll be better for athletes when they walk away from the game. Now they'll be better prepared. But during my time, and even before my time, like I said, I retired at 33, and that's relatively young in human years. But back in the day, athletes are playing longer now. You got your LeBrons and your Tom Brady's that are playing in their late 30s and even in their 40s. And so, but back then I retired at 33, and I was scared, man. Honestly, man, it's very scary. I thought I was prepared, but I wasn't prepared. And that's one of the things that the podcast is really about. Our podcast, the fifth quarter, is about when did your fifth quarter happen. I always knew my fifth quarter was coming.
Right.
I'll tell you a little bit about it. I knew it was coming because we always look at it. I think we get too personal with it, and we just need to start looking at it as it's just transactional. I don't think companies have time to care about people that can't do anything for them anymore. It's just business. You'll get left behind. I mean, look at Blockbuster. Look at Polaroid. You know what I mean? They didn't change. You know what I mean? They didn't change with the times, and they got left behind. So things are constantly changing, and the world is getting faster and faster. So I mean, you just have to adjust, man. It is very difficult. Like I said, I wasn't ready. I thought I was ready. I had a job set up. I had my second son on the way, and I just wanted to be at home with my family. And I had this job, but it didn't quite go. The job didn't go like I wanted it to go, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I was afraid, like, how am I going to feed my family? How am I going to do this? I'm always thinking about that, man. And that's really scary for somebody, not for a 21-year-old, but for a 33, 34-year-old with two kids. That's very scary.
Right. No, and that's a good point there too. Is you talked about Polaroid and Blockbuster. Maybe one day what we need to do is either down there at University of Memphis is get a little booth, and we'll put a Polaroid viewing booth with the viewfinder and then some other stuff, just so because today's kids, that's the one thing I will say. Growing up in the era that we did, it's different coming up from the 70s to the 80s. And for those who are listening in, obviously we're all telling our ages here, but it was such a great era because things weren't fast. Like you were so patient. The same way, like if let's say the three of us, right, Michael, me, you, and Ryan, we're friends, and something, it wasn't something big. It was something so small. It wouldn't get back to your house unless you ran home and grabbed the phone before the phone rang.
Yes.
It's one thing. But now you get into trouble and it's quick text message.
Oh, yes. Yes. I remember this instant I got in trouble in elementary school, and I got home. I knew the school was going to call, so I stood by the phone, and every time the phone rang, I picked it up and just hung it up. You know what I mean? But nowadays, email would have been sitting. I would have been in trouble as soon as I got home, man. So yeah, I tell my sons, you guys missed everything. You missed the beginning of the explosion of hip hop. You missed the explosion of the NBA, or how it was, or how when we watched MTV and VH1 and just how things. They was like, how do you know these songs? These songs, Duran Duran and all these songs. I was like, because we grew up on it. You just don't know. Now we push kids outside, like go outside, and now we used to beg. Back then, we used to beg our parents to go outside. Like, can I go outside, please? Now it's like totally opposite. You know what I mean? So I think players now, they're more skilled than us, than we were, but I think they're not as tough as we were back in the day. Not at all, but they're more skilled. Don't get it twisted. They're more skilled.
Well, they'll just get AI or a drone and take the pictures now. So
yeah, I mean, it's crazy how things are going now, man. So
yeah. And you're right. Kids are, I mean, let's face it, 70s, 80s, even the 90s, playing sports, you had to be a lot tougher than what they are now. And there's just, don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Hey,
because I just grew up in a different era. Fundamentals, toughness, so you can blow on somebody in the NBA and like wave your hand at them and it's a foul.
But it's a business now. And I used to think just like that, Ryan, but it's a business. Okay. Businesses are constantly trying to grow, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. I remember here when the Commanders, they were playing, it was some years ago, and they had got Donovan McNabb. I know he was on the tail end of his career, but we were going to the game, and I wanted to see Donovan McNabb play. It just so happened he was hurt, and he didn't play, and I was very disappointed. And that's how, the business aspect of it. Me and you, we're going to watch the Chiefs, regardless if Patrick Mahomes play or something like that. But we want the non-fan to start coming to the games, and we got to protect their product. And in order for it to grow, you got to protect their product. For the enthusiasts like us, we can look at a game that's the final score is 7-3. We're like, that was a great game. But for the person that doesn't look like, they're like, oh my God, that was a terrible, boring game. So that's why it's constantly changing. That's where the change comes in. So I'm with you though, Ryan.
What now? Does things change it? And Ryan, because I'm pretty sure it's the same way too here for you. But Michael, is it so? Before, I mean, everybody used to do trash talking. The Charles Barkley was the king of trash talking when he was in. He was a Philadelphia 76er. But it was, I think, again, it's two different eras. When we went to a game, it was common. You just saw it. Patrick Ewing back in the day when he was in New York Knicks. I mean, there were so many things that were common back then that you didn't take it to heart. It wasn't a direct insult, put it that way. It was just, it's what you did. They would come to the court, they would come to your home stadium, and everybody just said it. If the fans came from New York, and everybody knows that in Philly, that's just the way it was. You came from New York, you knew you were going to hear it. But at the end of the day, everybody's like, oh, it was a great game, whatever. Even if you got, if you got your butt handed to you. It was just such a different era compared to today, where today you get thrown out and you may not even be able to come back to that venue anymore.
Yeah, you're right. I think sometimes, times have changed. You used to be able to get away with things. I heard stories about players playing in the Boston Garden and how things have happened. I remember us, even I'm not that old, but I remember playing Arkansas. It's a big rivalry, Memphis and Arkansas. We had a lot of Memphis guys on the Arkansas team. And I remember the things that were going on and things that were said to us. But that is fond memories for me. That actually fired me up. I wanted to shut the crowd up and things like that. But I know the reason. Like I said, it's all about protecting the brand and protecting the product. You know what I mean? So for us enthusiasts, we don't care about it. But for the people that buy those tickets, they may care. So that's the big picture.
You play you. I'm trying to think back. You were. Did you play against Corliss?
Yeah, we played against Corliss. We played against Corliss. They were trying to repeat. They cheated us. You being an action player, they cheated us in the Sweet 16 off of a hand check call. We had them beat. The referee called a hand check call. And they beat us in overtime in the Sweet 16. They had beat us twice that year. They beat us in their place, I think, about 1 or 2 points. And then they beat us in overtime there. But I was really impressed what they did. Well, we would have beat the crap out of Virginia anyway. They beat Virginia but then I was really impressed at how they beat North Carolina. They beat their North Carolina team with Rasheed Wallace and Jerry Stackhouse, and they beat them pretty handily, and I was very impressed with that. But I felt like we were the better team, and they got smoked in the UCLA game. I think our team was so stacked, that 95 team. I mean, we have 4 McDonald All-Americans on our team. And that us playing against UCLA would have been a great matchup because we played so similar. We get ran up and down the floor.
Now,
That was 94, 95, or was that 95, 96?
There was 94, 95.
That's right. That's
yes.
Right. Because then
the Phantom handshake call.
My Kentucky Wildcats won it the next year.
Hey, I can't be mad, man. Hey, it's a great story program. I can't be upset, man. My former teammate, he's he's assistant coach over there, Orlando Antigua. Shout out to Orlando. He played with me with the Trotters for about 5 or 6 years, man. Then he got into coaching, so he's under that Calipari umbrella.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, before we get into the Harlem Globetrotters, and I want to know, Michael, like for you, when did you know that directional path for you? And I'm going back to your younger years leading up until when you made the choice to go into Melrose High School. And I'm dying to hear that story because I heard it again during the podcast. It just seems like one of those just, had to go places. And then your unique accommodations as far as where you stayed at for 3 years. But when did you know, like that directional path? When did you feel like, okay, I don't want to be, for example, a doctor or a lawyer. I know that I just want to take this direction. And then how's that same path led you to where you are today?
I remember actually falling in love with basketball. I started playing basketball late in a lot of people's eyes. I didn't start playing till 8th grade. So I didn't get the courage enough to try for the team by 8th grade, but this is before I could even dunk. I could barely even touch the rim, but I just remember falling in love. And the reason I fell in love with it is because I remember watching NC State play the University of Houston in the national championship game. And it's just something about Jimmy V, man. Jimmy Valvano. Mm-hmm. He had this aura about him, man. I wanted to play for this man. I really did, man. And it was just like, I just remember falling in love. And I remember in Memphis, if it snows just a little bit, they're like, look, you don't have to go to school. But I remember it was snow on the ground. And I was like, look, I got to go to gym class. I got to work on my game. So I walked through, about a quarter mile of school to get to school so I can go to gym and work on my game, man. So I just remember falling in love with basketball. And I wasn't the best, but I was the hardest worker. I knew nobody would outwork me. We had this guy in junior high. We used to play with him. I'm not going to say his name, but he would, this, like I said, this is before I can even touch the rim. He was dunking 2 hands. It was 2 guys on the team we played in junior high. I was just like, wow. But by the time we got in high school, everybody caught him. You know what I mean? He kind of, he peaked in junior high school. You know what I mean? And his game was kind of the same in high school. He was a pretty good player, but it kind of peaked. But I knew my friends, nobody would outwork me to get to the level that I wanted to get, because that was my thing. I was talking to Sandy about it. I couldn't dance. I wasn't the most popular guy, but I was like, look, this is my thing. And I'm going to show everybody, like I was a great athlete. I could run real fast. Of course, I could jump real high. So I just used that as my outlet. Kept me out of trouble. Even the guys, I'll never forget this story real quick. When we was growing up, there was this guy named Jake in the neighborhood, big guy named Jake. At least I thought he was big. He used to go up and just crush the rim. I used to break the rim. Everybody was afraid of him too. Like Big Jake, had the big Jerry curl, Jake. I was at the University of Memphis. I think I was at the University of Memphis. I walked into the barbershop and I looked over, and guess who was sitting in the chair? It was Jake. And I just said, hey, man, guys, what's going on? And he said, what's going on, Mike? And I was like, I could not believe Jake knew who I was. You know what I mean? I was like, and I was a kid back then. He was like, yeah, man, I watch you and I'm proud of you and the things that you do. And I was like, wow, man. And that really hit home for me, man. So shout out to Big Jake, man. I can't believe he remembered who I was, man. So I just knew anybody would not work me, man. I was oldest child. I didn't have any older siblings and anything I can look up, so it was all on me. And I moved out when I was about 15 years old. I was like, it's time for me to go. My mom moved into a different part of the city, but I wanted to go to Melrose High School. So I lived with my grandmother for about a month or so, and I would walk to school, walk about a mile or so to school. But I found one of my high school buddies, and mom said, "Hey, you can come stay with us for the week," and I would stay with them. For the year, I stayed with them, and I would go home on the weekends. Then I stopped going home on the weekends, and then I ended up staying with them for 3 years. And even he was a year older than me, and even when he went off to college, um, I stayed with them my senior year and went off until I went to college. And she was a huge Memphis basketball fan, huge Memphis Tiger basketball fan. But unfortunately, she passed away before I played my first game at the University of Memphis. So it was bittersweet, but I know she knew I signed to play for the University of Memphis, so she was excited to see me play. But unfortunately, she did not. So yeah, that's my story, man. So I knew nobody wasn't going to work harder than me, and I kind of put my eggs all in one basket. I kind of go what Kobe says. I remember Kobe said, "Don't put your eggs in one basket." He said, "Why not? You can always make more eggs."
Uh-huh. True. It is true.
Yeah,
But
so, I put it all in there.
now, before we get into it, because I want to have a question as far as your book that you're writing right now, the My Fifth Quarter. And I want to talk about it, as far as the history behind your high school, Melrose, because it's just, you talked about it. There's other athletes as well that had gone there, which in the podcast as well. In case you guys are joining us here at the bottom of the hour, we have Michael Wilson from the Fifth Quarter Podcast, former Harlem Globetrotter, former Memphis Tiger, always be an alum. Here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, the game, also on BroadStreetSouth.com. But it's intriguing about this high school because it's almost like, I don't want to say defense mechanism, but it's just, there is something that you're just strongly attached to it. And then where you lived for 3 years just to be able to go to this high school. So let the listeners know exactly the history behind Melrose.
The old mighty Melrose High School. Been around for so long. One of the oldest high schools in Memphis. All my family went to Melrose High School. I remember going to their graduations and things like that. And so I wanted to go to that school. I wanted to follow in my family's footsteps. So I walked up to the school and told the coach. Coach didn't know who I was. I want to play basketball. He was like, "Oh, okay." But then he saw me go up and dunk it. He was like, "Oh, okay." So back now in high school, you can go to any high school you want to go to, pretty much. But I had to take a horticulture class in order to go to Melrose High School. So I took horticulture, and shout out to Mr. Lee at Melrose High School. But we have a rich tradition, man. We had William Bedford, former NBA player. We had Sheila Eccles, Olympic gold medalist. We had Rochelle Stevenson. We just had her on the podcast. Coach Larry Finch. Even Ryan knows the great Jerome Woods, to play for the Kansas City Chiefs. I can go on and on about the great Kennedy McKinney, the boxer that won a gold medal at the Olympics. So we can go on and on. Even our coach coached me at Memphis. The great Larry Finch, like I said, was a golden Wildcat.
Right, yeah. It's good because you rarely hear athletes talk about their schools, and I think it's just because maybe as time goes on, they don't talk about it too much. But I know some are really, really into it. You have Kobe Bryant, for example, to bring him back, and God bless him, God rest his soul. But there were the folks from Philly were upset because he wouldn't claim Philly as when he got drafted. He wouldn't claim Philly, and his thing was he wasn't from Philly, played in Philly. The guys came out to the suburbs and told him, if you really want to get your game up, you need to come play in the city, and that's what he did. So he would come from Montgomery County, go out to Philadelphia County, out to the city, and he would play. So people felt like, why doesn't he say because he wasn't from Philly? And he expressed it so many times, and people finally got it. Unfortunately, about 2 to 3 years prior to his death, they're like, oh, okay, all right, it does make sense. Obviously, he was from the county, so it made sense.
Yeah, it's not even about it's more about the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
The neighborhood I grew up in Memphis is Orange Mound. It's called Orange Mound. If you know, it's one of the first Black communities in the United States that was formed, Orange Mound, and it's a lot of great high schools in the Orange Mound area. But Melrose is known. So you know when you're from Orange Mound, and even when I was introduced with the Globetrotters, I didn't say I was from Memphis, Tennessee. They used to say I'm from Orange Mound, Tennessee. You know what I mean? So it was just that pride about it, man. And we still talk junk with each other on social media and things like that about our high schools, which high schools was the best, which high schools had the greatest athletes and things like that. But we always come out on top.
So, Michael, you talked about NC State wanting to play for Valvano. You liked
So
what you
you light
saw.
up when I said that. You light up when I said that, Jimmy B.
Basketball was your calling, but we were talking a little bit before pre-show. Go back to the Memphis teams of the early '80s, middle '80s with Keith Lee. Keith Lee going there seemed to change the game for Memphis in recruiting.
Yeah. They're great players that came through the University of Memphis, but I have players that I've so-called they are kings. And when I say they are kings, they're the most important players to ever play at the University of Memphis. And most of those players were on that 85-86 team with Keith Lee and Andre Turner and William Bedford and Baskerville Home, God rest his soul. I mean, that team was, I just remember as a kid watching it, them going to the Metro tournament, playing against their rivals, Louisville. And schools even stopped teaching. I mean, we even had TVs in the classroom where we could watch the games going on. I remember them after they won the tournament, they came back on a private jet. And people were waiting for them at the airport, and I was just in awe. And to grow up and to start playing and start knowing these guys, like I know Andre Turner, I know William Bedford, I know Keith Lee, and you ask any Tiger, past or present, they may say different now, but from when I was growing up, from 85 to 86 till about 2000, everybody from Memphis, 90% of those guys on the team were from Memphis. So it was important. And you asked any of them, they was like, man, I want to be like Andre Turner, or I want to be like Keith Lee. I want to be like William Bedford. And so that team, arguably the best, I'm a little biased, but it is the most important. The reason I say arguably, because I'm telling you, we had some monsters on our team. We had 8 to 10 guys on that 94-95 team that had a 20-point game or more that year. We had a great team, and we could match up with that 85-86 team really well. They had William Bedford, we had Lorenzen Wright, God rest his soul. They had Keith Lee, William Bedford, we had Lorenzen Wright, we had David Vaughn, we had Cedric Henderson, they had Vincent Askew, they had Andre Turner, we had Chris Garner. So we had we matched up with them pretty well. I won't say who would have won them, not, but it would have been great to see.
What about that 07-08 team?
That 07-08 team was great. Don't get me wrong, it was great, but I think they were a little too small for that team. You know, Joey Dorsey was a monster, absolute monster, but Lorenzen Wright was a monster. David Vaughn was a monster. Those are two absolute monsters in there. You know what I mean? And you got Keith Lee and William Bedford. Can you imagine Joey Dorsey going up against Keith Lee and William Bedford? I don't know. You know what I mean? So just can never tell. It's hard to compare eras. And Derrick Rose was the it factor. You know what I mean? They had a lot of guys that did their part. So it was a very talented team. So it hurt my heart that they didn't win it. It's hard for me to watch a Memphis basketball game because I'm too invested in it. I just turn it. And that proved my point. So if they're winning and then other teams start coming back, and I was like, it's because I'm watching a game, and I'll just turn it because I think I'm a jinx.
Yeah, I can't tell you what I was like when Duke beat Kentucky on the late nerd.
Man, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was know where I was. I went through the roof. I was so aggravated. It was one of the best college basketball games I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, yeah.
It went, and they didn't put a defender on the guy taking the ball out.
When we beat Purdue to go to the Sweet 16, same scenario. If you watch it, I think it's on YouTube or something. We were playing Purdue. That was when they had Conzo Martin, and we were up. David Vaughn had got a tip in, and we were up 1 point on Purdue. This is before the Arkansas game, and we thought about that play. The coaches were talking about that. Like they said, we're not going to have another a Duke Kentucky. So I was on the bench during that time because of my leaping ability. They put me in the game to get for that exact point to get on the ball, so the guy couldn't throw a good pass, and we intercepted the ball and won the game. So Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody was hurt because of that. Nobody liked Duke. I don't know why everybody liked Duke, man. It was just, I mean, I think Derek. I won't get into it too much, but I think uh, what's his name, Rose, that played at Michigan. I think he said it best. Uh, no matter what kind of numbers you put up, if you didn't come from a certain kind of era, a certain kind of background or whatever, you wasn't going to Duke. He changed. That's I talk about that in my book as well. He changed. He started getting the JUCO players or the players that didn't come from a traditional home and things like that because he had to. Because these other players, they were going to other schools and they were kicking Duke's butt, and Duke, he was like, "Wait a minute, I changed," and so that was a great strategy on his part to change. Like I think Rose said it best. Like they would recruit me, but I bet my son could go to Duke. I think it's different now. So I think it's open arms. So
I hear you.
Yeah, and before we get into some Harlem Globetrotter talks, the special guest that I noticed that's waiting in the green room, who made actually a lot of this possible, it is Sandy Adams, our special guest from the
oh
Fifth
wow,
Quarter Podcast. So the host and co-host of the Fifth Quarter Podcast, you guys can listen to it on Spotify and then right here as well on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. And I can't thank you both enough for allowing me to do so on the sports radio station and become a major hit on the station itself. Everybody looks forward to the new episodes. But Sandy, I know you were busy this evening, but I thank you for jumping in as a special guest.
Well, you're quite welcome. I'm glad to be here.
that's my boss.
Now, it's rare that you get from the host and co-host of a show on the same night, and I just thought I reached out to Sandy this afternoon. And I thought, hey, how about if you become the special guest this evening and surprise Michael? Because I think
I'm pleasantly surprised. I know she's really, really busy. She said she might be on. She might catch the end of it. She said she had something to do. So I am so glad that she's on. I'm more comfortable now. I got my.
Oh my God! You played in front of
bodyguard
thousands of people, and you're like, I'm more comfortable that she's on now. Okay, it's all good. It's all good.
Right.
I love talking with Sandy because I was joking with her today about I've been living in DC for almost 20 years now, and I miss that Southern drool, the way she talks and things like that. It took me back home, and I could just close my eyes, and it made me think of home. So I really love it.
It's funny because you can hear Sandy. You can hear the Southern voice the most when she does the introduction to the next podcast. That's when you can hear it the most. Because once the podcast starts, it's like, wait, where'd the accent go? It's gone. But you can hear it the most when she does the introduction.
I gotta say, we gotta work on our I've got to work on my intro because I feel like it kind of there's like a lull, and I talk really slow, and I like get that Southern accent. But no, we actually have a special segment to our Fifth Quarter Podcast that will be starting in a couple of weeks. So we'll go to 2 episodes a week for 8 weeks, and we were talking with one of the people today, one of the guests that will be on there, and she has a really Southern accent. So I'm pretty sure my Southern accent is going to come out even more when we get her on there. But yeah, we're excited about that.
No, but it's good. But see, Sandy, so if you guys don't follow Sandy the same way with Michael on Twitter, on social, all social medias, on Instagram, it's funny because some of your promos that you do for your own podcast, it seems like it changes. So you won't get the Southern Sandy. You'll get almost like the version of Tennessee Sandy, and it's completely different. But it's amusing though because it's fun. It's like, okay, I want to hear the promo. Huh? Just regular Sandy.
You never know who's going to come out on a specific day. You just never know. And a lot of times it's, I think that if I know because sometimes I have it written out what I'm going to say. Right. And if that's the case, then I get that very professional sounding like I have right now. But if it's more relaxed, like when our podcast starts, then I'm a little bit more relaxed and I just am trying to figure out what I'm going to say then. That's more ad lib.
No, but it's so Ollie Stevenson from the Audacious Living podcast. He was a commissioner, still is a commissioner of the National Basketball League of Canada. But it's funny because he's the same way too. So the same way the 4 of us are in this room here and we're speaking and just having a quick conversation. He's good on that behalf, but if he's going to record something, it's the funniest thing because he feels out of place unless he has his teleprompter going because he knows what he already wrote down and he wants to talk about. So if you would stand there and put your hand in front of the teleprompter, it would completely throw off his game. and now you get some people are just, it's like that. They know. For me, when I do my promos, I don't. There's nothing written. There's nothing else. It's either the memorization of it and I just let it roll.
Yeah, most of mine, I mean, I'm pretty good about because I've taught in person and online for gosh, several years. So I'm pretty good. And if you know the basis of what you're going to say, I'm pretty good at ad-libbing and I don't necessarily need a script. But sometimes, I don't always like having the so's and the buts that I throw in there occasionally when I'm ad-libbing stuff. And so that just kind of, we have 4 co-hosts here right now, like 4 podcast co-hosts right here now. That's kind of wild. And I didn't tell my cousin I was going to be on tonight, so she's not here to throw in some questions online.
That's true. She had a lot. On the last one, she didn't have a lot.
She did. Shout out to my cousin Sam in California. Okay, so.
Also Sandy, Sandy never sleeps. She never ever
sleep.
She does not sleep. I'm telling you guys, she does not. She'll text me in the morning. I always look at I say, I'm an hour ahead. We're an hour ahead of Sandy. And I'm always looking like she's texting me at like 7:00. Yeah, I'm excited you're doing the podcast today. I'm like, what? How come you not sleep? She never sleeps. Never.
I do sleep, but a lot of people do ask me that though. But no, I do sleep.
When you're running your own network, when you're doing things, when you're trying to achieve a lot of greatness, that's the way it is. I'm the same way here. I got my 8-hour job. I come home 8 hours in the studio.
I know. I've asked you like when do you find time to actually work? I know it's crazy. It's crazy.
Because you have to try to network with as many people as you possibly can. And I was saying, so before the show had started, Michael and I were talking, and Ron Briscoe, who through an intermediate on LinkedIn, reached out to me today, and we're having a 15-minute conversation. And it was supposed to be 15 minutes. It turned out to be an hour and 40-minute conversation on a phone. But it was fun because he was telling me, and he's going to be coming up next week, so I don't want to give a lot away, but it's funny because he worked for Nike and he talked about the Air Jordan story, which that went on for a while. Then he talked about the new king, which LeBron ended up taking over from Michael Jordan. So there was the different things, but in order to make the network grow in the 3 years, just like, Sandy, when you've done it for yourself and now with the Fifth Quarter podcast, you have to just pursue things and you have to go after it. So for me, sleep, and I know because my fiance, I tell her all the time, when I'm 6 feet under, that's when I finally go to sleep. That's about it. But the brain never stops. It keeps going. Sometimes it is a bad thing though, because I can go night after night and if something pops in my head, I'm up, I'm in the studio, I'm writing stuff down. All right, I'm going to reach out to this person.
I'm not that bad.
Okay.
I'm not. But somebody was asking me something the other day, and I said, even when, because I would like to have more clients now. So if anybody has LinkedIn or personal branding or social media, or they want to look for job search, I can consult on all of that. No shame in my game there. But when business goes up or down, especially when it goes down, and people can get, and I think this plays into a lot of what the Fifth Quarter podcast talks about is too, we can have a tendency to want to get depressed or want to hide. We want to hide, if we're not doing as well as we think we should, we want to hide. And my philosophy has always been, I need to put myself out there more. Like the more people that see me, because I always do that, the 4-prong of see, know, like, and trust. So the more people that see you, the more they know you, the more they know you, the more they like you, the more they like you, the more they trust you. So, instead of hiding when things are down, put yourself out there more. And that, because you just need to put yourself out there more. It's going to give you more opportunities to be seen, and more opportunities can turn into something else, and Angel, I don't know if we even talked about how you and I actually met. We met on Twitter.
Right.
And you sent me a direct message, and I've actually made jokes about private messages on Twitter. I'll tell you about that in a second. I said I could. Well, I'll tell you about now. I said I could write a book about the private messages I get on Twitter. I could write a private. I could write a book about that. Anyway, so Angel sends me this. I'm on a roll tonight, aren't I? Angel sends me this private message, and I'm like, "Can I cuss on here?" I'm like, "Who the hell is this?" I am going to anyway. I'm like, "Who in the hell is this?" Because I am very skeptical about direct messages. Ryan's laughing now, and so I read it, and I'm like, He wants me to be on his podcast. So I go and look up the website and everything, and I think you were redoing it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, it can't be too bad if I respond to the message, So I did, and we had a good conversation. And then I was like, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? It's a podcast. It's not like he's coming to my house or anything. It's not like we're even in the same city. And it turned out to be, a great starting friendship. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. But
that's awesome, Sandy. I really like, that's what we really talk about in our podcast as well. I remember as even with the Globetrotters, even when I was at the University of Memphis, we would have to do these meet and greets, and most athletes are like, "Oh, I don't want to do this meet and greet," but in actuality, they're supposed to be jumping at those meet and greets. Those are the people that you're going to be making deals with after your career is over with. Those are the people you're going to reach back out to, and that's what me and Sandy trying to get across, to get athletes prepared.
Right.
My favorite question is, we have a series of questions that we like try to ask.
Right.
But my favorite question is, if you could go back and talk to your younger self, what would you tell your younger self? And a lot of, we get different answers from different people. Like you said, Angel, I remember you said William Bedford was your favorite one. It really resonated with you.
Yeah.
And he said it was his favorite one. And we asked him that question, and he was like, he doesn't know what he would say. He didn't know what his value was. He didn't know. And me, I would tell my younger self, know your value. I've always undersold myself. I always was scared to be a shrewd business person or go after what I want, or do I really deserve this? I can't believe this. Sandy always, she laugh about it, but she sees it in me. When I get all giddy when I get a guest on the show, she was like, "You're one of them."
I know.
And I'm like,
I'm just little old me, and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with y'all? Come on.
And I'm like, wow, it really means something for my peers. Just like you said, Ryan. I mean, I grew up watching Keith Lee and William Bedford them, and I reached out to these guys, and these guys called me. They called me back immediately, and I was in awe that they called me back. And Sandy's like, "What are you talking about? You're one of them." So, it's something that I'm still learning. Of something that I'm still growing. And so you have to, and that's why I'm so proud of the way college is now. These athletes, they have a little power. And I knew it was going to happen sooner or later, but now they have some power to set themselves up for life after basketball. Because when you think about it, your career is short. I played 10 years after college. But how many athletes really play 10 years? So you have a short amount of time to make this amount of money, and people expect you to live off that for the rest of your life. So
that's right. And not every most athletes are not going to be LeBron James. Most athletes are not going to be Tom Brady. They're going to have a shorter lifespan, and anything can happen. And I think it's really important. And when we started doing our podcast, we realized really quickly that most of our guests were going to be men. And I was like, why is that? And that's because there's not as many opportunities for pro sports for women. Yes, there's the WNBA, there's soccer, and there's track and field and some other things, but there's such a narrow window for that. There's not that many opportunities. So, when girls go into college, they go in with a plan A, which is not pro sports. And so it's going to be the guys that I think, are going to be the ones that really need to pay attention to, make sure that you get those NIL deals, make sure that you start learning about, branding and how to build that brand that lasts, because you could get injured your first year in the NBA or the first year in the NFL or whenever that is. And, it could all leave right then. So, that's our message. I don't want to take over the podcast. I know I have a tendency to do that. So,
Michael, if you could go back and talk to your younger self What would you tell them? It would be more nerve-wracking to make a 12-foot dunk, playing in a Sweet 16, working for Parks and Recreation, or doing a podcast with Sandy Adams?
I don't know. I like where I'm at. I think everything happens for a reason, man. If I could go back, honestly, the one thing I would say is keep your butt in the gym. Stay in the gym. I worked hard. I really, really worked hard. But I talked to a couple of my buddies, and we should have been sleeping in the gym. We should have been. Tracy McGrady said something that really resonated with me. He said he didn't play pickup.
That's right.
Because how many reps do you really get in pickup? Ryan, you played pickup before. I'm sure, Angel, you played pickup before too as well. Mm-hmm. If you need to work on your jump shots and we're playing pickup, how many jump shots do you really get in your pickup game? You don't get a lot.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we should have been playing pickup, but we also should have been doing other things as well. So, and that's the one thing I regret, that I didn't pick the penny when he was there. I didn't pick his brain, or I didn't like sit down and talk to him and be like, look, what do you see? How do I get there? And what do I do? Right. You know what I mean? So I wish I could have done that, you know, and I'm not putting in any excuses, but I didn't have any consistency in high school. My 10th grade year, I had a different coach. 11th grade year, I had a different coach. 12th grade year, I had a different coach. So I didn't have any consistency, and everybody used me for my jumping ability. They're like, oh, this guy, he can jump really high. So I thought I was going to be about 6'9", 6'10", but I got to about 6'5", and I stopped.
If you look at Memphis basketball, so last year we had KO that was on our team. And, everybody looked at him, as he's going to be the dunker, which he is the dunker. But, the thing is, they brought in Joey Dorsey to really work with him to be able to do, and I don't know all the basketball lingo, so forgive me, but to do, I guess, the fadeaway jumper, those kind of things, to improve. Michael's laughing at me. To improve, the other skill sets, make yourself more versatile, and not just, people are going to pinpoint you. And that's the one thing that William Bedford talked about in the first episode of the Fifth Quarter podcast, or the second episode, I'm sorry. He talked about how, people wanted him to play basketball because he was tall, and I think that the more versatile you can be, and you're right, Michael, I think a lot of high school athletes, and obviously the coaches aren't really pushing them to be more consistent, but I think, being more consistent and really honing in on your skill set. Again, I'm taking over.
In college, I think it's almost too late in college. I think it's too late, guys, because Coach Cal or Coach Penny, they're not teaching Euro steps. They're not teaching behind the back moves. They are recruiting you on what you can do. So it's up to these youth coaches to get these players ready and more consistent. Nobody has time. Most great players, they're one and done anyway. So how much credit are they going to take for a player that's coming in August and they leave in May? The coach didn't do that much. So they got all their development before they got there. So it's very important. Youth development is the most important thing when it comes to sports. The ability to, this is what makes this is what separates a good player from a great player. The ability to make a decision. All athletes know how to make that decision, but it depends on how fast you make that decision. Right. Always related to a baseball pitch. Baseball players, they make decisions like super fast because they don't have time to think. That ball is coming 100 miles per hour. They don't have time to see like, well, am I going to swing, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. And that's like, even when I talk to Penny, if I could ask Penny anything, or I can ask Magic Johnson anything, I want to say, what did you see? How did you make that decision so fast? You know what I mean? And they made it so fast. And that's what makes a great player. Everybody can make those decisions, but just how fast you can make them.
What's alarming? Go ahead, Sandy.
No, go ahead, Ryan.
So what's alarming to me is the lack of fundamentals that should be taught at a young age all the way up. It's like basketball. You take a look at Nikola Jokic. Yeah. He is a well-rounded, versatile center that has practiced the fundamentals of the game. And I just think that that's not being taught at the Pee-wee level, at the middle school level, at the high school level. It's just everybody wants to highlight.
Everybody wants the ready-made talent. My sons are swimmers. My sons didn't want to play basketball. Whatever my kids want to do, I just want to full support them. So I didn't want to be that helicopter dad or standing over them, but I used to go to their swim practice, and they swam for this big organization. But it was like an assembly line. It was like next, next, and next, and they weren't learning anything. So I took them out of the class. Long story short, I took them out of there and put them in a smaller swim group, and they're getting individual attention. And my son, he's a junior now. He'll get a scholarship. My youngest son, he'll get a scholarship for swimming because I put him in that group so he can get that individualized attention. And I think that's really important.
Well, also, you have to look at is a lot of times, the kids aren't being consistent because, maybe the coaches are leaving. If you have a different coach every year of high school, each coach is going to be focused on different things, and they're going to have different coaching styles. Michael's disagreeing with me.
No, I'm not disagreeing. What I'm saying is the only job for a middle school or a high school coach to do is get them ready for the next level. That's
not always what they think, though.
I know, but that's their only job. But if they do that, they'll win anyway.
Well, yeah, but every coach, you've got good coaches, you've got bad coaches, you got people that shouldn't even be coaching. You've got all those kind of things, and then you've got the parents and what they think is important. And I think kids, today have a lot of noise in their ears, a lot of noise, and they pay attention to too many things that they shouldn't pay attention to. They should focus on, if they want to play ball, they should focus on playing ball and learning those fundamentals. And no, I don't coach.
I'm going to bring up two points here, because one is, okay, Sandy asked in the first episode to you, Michael, what was your 5-year plan? And so
what was my what?
What are you doing in the next 5 years? You usually go to an employer, and the employer always sits you down for an interview and says, so where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? And Sandy had asked that question in episode 1. What was it's almost towards the end, Sandy, of the episode.
I don't have any memory of it. We shot his interview 3 times. Each one was different.
But
I think, I don't know the exact answer, but I know I like what I'm doing now. I like to work for myself. I love my job, what I'm doing now, but eventually I want to work for myself because I want to be in a position, whatever I put into it, that's what I want to get out of it. Some people like being comfortable enough, like, okay, here it is, here you get paid this, here you get paid this. I want one of those times that, Ryan, me and you are in business and we hit it hard one month, we can see the results for that one month. We may have some bad months, we may have some good months, but I want to be in a position, whatever I put into it, that's what I want to get out of it. And if I could do anything, I want to be able to give back and help. What I mean by give back and help is like what I'm doing now with the Fifth Quarter podcast. And I mean, like I said, I have a long history with the Globetrotters. I'm a legend with the Globetrotters. There's only like 35 legends, and I'm one of the legends, like the great Curly Neal and Meadowlark Lemon. Those guys are legends. And I was fortunate enough to be a legend on that team. So I left a legacy. And I would love to go back and maybe do some things with the Globetrotters. What I mean by that is not in the coaching sense. I would love to go back and bridge the gap between former players and the organization now, because it's always a rift, no matter who you talk to, whether not just with the Globetrotters, just with the NBA or anything. It's like, well, they don't do anything for us. They give us our flowers after we're dead and gone, or something like that. So I would love to bridge that gap, but I would also love to create a program that gets players ready for that transition.
Mm-hmm.
And get them ready. Like, okay, teaching them the ins and out of the business. And maybe you can start going to the front office and start doing some things. And maybe you can be a GM, or maybe you can get into broadcasting, or whatever you want to do. And we need to create these resources where we can port them in different directions. One of my former teammates, Kevin Daly, Kevin Daly was in the Michael Jordan commercial. You remember the commercial Michael Jordan played himself?
Yep.
Kevin Daly was the extra in that. So he just started a company where they're doing motivational speaker with athletes, and that's the resources that I was talking to him about that I will start pointing the athletes that we talk to through things like that. Right. Like you can get paid through motivational speaking and things like that. I want to create resources and things to really help people. If I would never move back to Memphis I want to say that, but if I did, the only way I would move back to Memphis is I could be in a position to create jobs, and I think that's very important.
We could have a fifth quarter podcast, and we could have a fifth quarter agency based in Memphis.
Yeah, so I want to create jobs, man. I don't know what I want, but I want to help and create jobs.
Well, I'm going to be 55 in a couple of weeks. Maybe I can hop on one of those cruises.
Hey,
okay, Ryan, I'm gonna shock everybody, but I'm older than you.
Oh wow!
And you don't look it, Sandy. So
Angel, you're probably you're probably the baby in this group.
Only minus 2 years from Ryan.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm the baby then.
I'm the oldest one in this group right now.
I'm the baby. I remember I was telling one of my staff members, he's 27 years old. I was like, "You're a baby, man." I was just like, I was just telling him to go for it, man. I was like, "What is your dream job? What do you want to do?" And he says he was a former football player, and he was like, "My dream job is to be working in the front office." I was like, "You're married, but you don't have any kids. Why not go for it? Right. Go for it, man.
That's right.
Nobody ever made it anywhere not jumping off the cliff. You have to jump off that cliff. You have to take that chance. And if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same results. So I'm spreading my wings now, like doing my podcast. And actually, I'm in October. I'm playing in it's a congressional basketball game where all the congressmen are playing each other. You know, they do the baseball thing, but they're playing the basketball as well. So they asked me to play. So I got to get in a little bit of shape so I won't embarrass myself out there, man. But I think I'll be okay.
Yeah. See, this is one of those things. By the way, here's the top of the hour. And thank you for everyone tuning in internationally on Sports Radio 102.9 FM. The Game, of course, over on AMP Radio, right here on BroadSTSouth.com, and, of course, over on YouTube. And tonight, our guest, Michael Wilson, Sandy Adams from the Fifth Quarter Podcast. And the reason why, and this is why there's visions that you end up having. And this is where I'm going to geek out here for a second, only because as we come into bonus time, the reason why I reached out to Sandy, not only to have her on the first time, as like she said, she vetted the program to make sure that she was going on somewhere that's legitimate. And the reason why I wanted the Fifth Quarter Podcast on Sports Radio, and you guys can hear it also on Spotify. So please like and subscribe to Spotify. Make sure you leave reviews and let everybody know exactly how you feel about the podcast. But because visions come to life, you never are going to go onto a show where you do a podcast within a podcast, meaning Fifth Quarter, Broad Street South.
That's right.
It's one of those things that there's visions and reasons why Ryan knows, because I'm a crazy lunatic when it comes to certain visions and stuff, the way I end up doing it. But because the idea too, now that I'm thinking about it, I think once a month, and if you guys are available, maybe taking 15 minutes, and I would love to do is that the guests that you guys have on the Fifth Quarter Podcast, because you know how you have like Bravo, they'll do like Below Deck, and they'll have a show, and then the former like either stewardesses or captains have been on there. They go back and they watch the show and they're like, "Huh, I remember when that happened."
I don't know if some of our guests will do that.
Well, no, not the guests. I'm saying like as far as the
us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because of the guests that you guys have on, because you can always pick up the one thing that I always say to the guys and some of the guys that are along with the network here. The toughest part is to go back and hear yourself and hear what was said in the show, what you guys had talked about, the different expressions, because when you're in the middle of the show, it's tough. Like for me, I have a couple of things that go on here in the studio, and I make sure that the feed is good, the sound is good. And while everything is going on, but you sometimes tend to miss a question you ask. But I think it'd be good to go back and then review as far as like what happened in the previous episodes.
I think that's a great idea. I would love to do that, man.
Yeah, I love to talk. So you give me an opportunity.
I love to keep myself busy, so I would love to do that. Ryan, where are you guys? I'm in DC right now. Where are you, Ryan?
I'm all the way up here, right outside of Philadelphia.
Yeah, he's in Philly. Angel's in Tampa.
Yeah.
I'm in Memphis. Michael's in DC. Yeah.
Okay.
Ryan, what were you going to say a few seconds ago?
I don't like listening to myself half the time. I don't want to do that, Angel. I don't want to go back and listen to myself.
Oh man,
I have to go back and listen to the episodes because I have to go back and produce them. Ours aren't live. Ours are recorded. So I hear them like 2 or 3 times.
Oh man, Globetrotter stories. I have some great Globetrotter stories. The greatest story ever, man. This is the greatest week I have ever had in my life. I'll tell you guys this. It was in April, It was before April. It started at the end of March. I was on a Today Show.
This year?
No, this is back in when I was playing with the
Okay.
Globetrotters. One of the greatest. I never asked anybody for an autograph ever, no matter who I was playing.
Oh, I know what this is. I think.
And this is a story. We were on a Today Show, and Halle Berry was on a Today Show, and we had been on the Today Show before. So I know when you finish your interview, you come up on the elevator and go into the green room. So she was on before us, and so I just planted myself right outside the elevator, like. So she came and it was like, "Hey, Globetrotters," and I got my picture with. I still got my picture with her today, just me and her. And after that, we went out shopping in New York City, and I just purchased a home. And
you and her?
No, I wish.
You said y'all went out shopping.
No, me and my teammates, we went out shopping, and I purchased some paintings. I purchased, some guy paintings. I bought a painting of like the Goodfellas, the guys that starred in the Goodfellas. I bought a painting of Bob Marley. I bought a painting of Sam Cooke, and I bought this painting of Muhammad Ali. He's one of my favorite athletes. Had a chance to meet him a couple of times, so he's my favorite athlete. So left New York, went straight to Indianapolis. It's April 1st, and I'm getting ready to attempt to break the world's record. I've already got the world record at like 11:10, 11:9 or something like that. So I'm going for 12 feet. So we get to Indianapolis, and we go straight to the arena. I didn't go to the hotel. I went straight to the arena. Halftime of the game, I went up. I dunked 12 feet. Broke the record. I'm all happy and all giddy. My teammates are happy for me. We're leaving the arena. And my teammate runs up to me. He says, "You'd never guess who wants to meet you." I said, "Who?" He said, "Muhammad Ali." And so remember the paintings that I bought, right? And I walked up to him, and he signed the painting right there, and I have it up in my basement, right up. It's behind me somewhere. I think it's on this side. If you see the brown frame thing right there,
that's you could just turn your camera.
Yeah, it's just a sign. Yeah, if you can see it right there, that's the signed painting of Muhammad Ali. So that was my Globetrotter, my favorite Globetrotter moment of all time right there. Meeting Muhammad Ali in that moment. He wanted to meet me. So that's just a story I wanted to tell you guys.
I don't have anything stories like that.
No, but that's cool though, because again, it's life experiences that you would never expect. Hey, listen, who was to say that I would speak to not only the former athletes we've had on, but then again, a Harlem Globetrotter. It's something what I grew up with in Philly. So I'm originally from Philly, Michael. So and I moved down here about 5 years ago. But every time it came to the Spectrum, when the Spectrum was around, that was a big thing. And it was always an argument with my mom. She's like, "Well, you saw him last year." And she was okay. And she would take me because she knew I've been a nerd all my life. I love sports all my life. And there were certain things that just came into town that I just wanted to see. When Barnum Bailey Circus came around, that was one of those things I just wanted to see.
Once a year.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things that if someone would have told me in years past that I would have had the opportunity to speak to a Harlem Globetrotter, I would have told somebody, okay, whatever, and maybe some other lifetime. It would never happen. So it's funny how things come around full circle, because this vision again of starting the network in a former relationship, it never came to fruition. Things happen, life happens, we move on. And then I was able to do so because I kept pursuing it. It kept being a passion. It's, I keep the lights on in the studio and stuff like that by working the full-time job. And hopefully at one point there will be a sponsor that will come around that end up helping and assisting. I have smaller ones, but they're very small. It's like pocket change, and it's not even enough for the amount of stuff I got going on. But I'm grateful because they are around. That's the one thing. I'm very grateful for the ones that are there, but hopefully someday in Bud Light, just saying, you guys are trying to change things up. It goes in and reach it out. And we'll see what happens. The combo with the Broad Street South and Fifth Quarter podcast. We're just saying.
I feel you. I'm of course, that's the big picture. But I see, I listened to you guys' show before when Sandy was on, and I'm talking to you guys now. It really seems like you guys just really enjoy it. You really enjoy it. And that's how we want to come across. Like, we really enjoy it. If a big sponsor comes along and it's like, "Hey, you guys don't have to do anything else," that'll be great. But we're going to continue to do it. But I see how you guys, it seemed like like you can't wait. Like Ryan, when I mentioned, who did I mention? I mentioned Keith Lee. Ryan's face just lit up. You know what I mean?
Really? Now, I
Yeah.
have a question. Had you heard of Keith Lee before I came on the podcast? Had you heard of him?
Oh, I used
Yeah.
to. I mean, I used to watch the college basketball tournament all the time back in high school, and Keith Lee would be on Memphis Tigers, Bedford.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I used to follow. I don't follow college basketball as much anymore,
Right.
but back then I used to follow it to a T. I mean,
Wow.
just like Michael said, sometimes during the college basketball tournament in the '80s, the teachers would actually put TV sets in the rooms for us.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I think
I miss those days.
I don't think we watch it as much. I don't watch it as much anymore either. I think because these sports channels have ruined it for us. They just show the highlights, the things that we want to see. And
Can I tell you, the Tigers were in the Dominican Republic. Okay. So all 3 games, there were 3 games in the Dominican Republic just a few weeks ago. They were all aired by the Dominican Republic people. Okay. They were all in Spanish. Can I tell you, that was so pleasant because I don't really like the ESPN Plus or ESPN main commentators. I get very irritated because it always sounds like they're against Memphis. It's always the other team that they're rooting for. And so to have the broadcast in Spanish, although I keep hearing Hardaway's name in with the Spanish accent, okay, and that's all I knew, and the numbers 1 through 10, but. It was kind of nice. It was kind of nice to not know what they were saying, and everybody was happy. And yeah,
Well, the difference.
I think I've been to 81 countries.
bragger.
In my 10 years with the Trotters, I was fortunate enough to visit 81 countries. But I think the reason they've been around so long and they're so popular, and Angel, how you talk about them, so fondly, is because there's a few things in life that are universal, and there's laughter,
one of them.
Music, and there's love, and the Globetrotters brought all 3 of those things to the game. Yep. So it doesn't matter. We had to learn, like the things that we said, we had to learn in Spanish. Like we would be in Spain one day, we would have to learn a little Spanish. And we'd be in German one day, we had to learn a little German. Don't ask me to speak it because I forgot it. But those things, it's just universal. And just like Sandy said, she was sitting there watching the game and enjoying it, and she knew what was going on. And I think that's what makes sports so passionate, because even we may be divided in a whole lot of things, especially nowadays. But when the Olympics is on, it doesn't matter what's going on.
Yeah.
If water polo is going on, we're like, was USA winning?
That's right. That's right. We don't, and people don't even know who's playing on the water polo team, but everybody's like, because you're like that. And that's the thing. If people want to talk about sports in Memphis, and I know that Memphis sports fans can be really aggressive when it comes to what they don't like, but I got to tell you, it does unite the city when the teams are winning. It really does. And I'm not sure if it's just the culture and the atmosphere of Memphis, or how we're not really a small town, but we're not a large town either. We're a large, small town. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I think sports is universal. You can give a basketball to any kid, and I think they're going to figure out how to play with it, in some form or fashion. They may not know the rules, but again, I'm taking over. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. No, but it's funny because you bring up, the Spanish broadcasters, the difference is that they try not to, as they're told, try not to be one-sided. And so the energy that you have to bring from the Spanish,
I couldn't even tell if they were one-sided, two-sided, or three-sided. I just knew that I don't have to listen to the ESPN commentators.
No, because, go ahead, Ryan.
See.
Well, no, because so the difference is, like, you can have basically like an introduction. Like, for example, like tonight, as I brought in Michael Wilson, and it's
he's going to show off now, aren't you, Angel?
No, but so the bigger difference is because you have to bring a different type of energy when you're bringing in a show, and there is a Spanish element that's going to be coming soon here to Broad Street South, and it's
breaking news.
It's completely different. So when you bring in the English version versus the Spanish version, it's different. So, for example, you can have the same introduction tonight, but if you hype it up a little bit more, it's different. So in Spanish, you'll have, esta noche tenemos Michael Wilson y Sandy Adams.
See, showing off. I told you.
And so you have to bring it up because when people tune in, you got to remember in a Spanish household, everything happens like this. Everything is quick. You want to bring in a conversation, it's like an Italian family. Everybody thinks you're arguing, but because everybody's bringing in a point.
That's true.
So you have to make it entertaining because if not, if you're a Spanish broadcaster and you come on and say, y esta noche, mijo, change the channel, mijo, because that doesn't work for me.
You said Angel's showing out. I ought to go get one of my sons, man. Both of my sons are fluent in Spanish, man. They've been doing Spanish American since they were like 3 years old, man. Most people that speak it don't know how to write it, but they've been immersed in Spanish since like age 3, so they're very fluent, man. I even today at work, a young lady came in and she was speaking Spanish, and I couldn't understand, so I called my son. I was like, "Tell me what she's saying." You know what I mean? So it comes to Andy, man.
So I can say I used to work at a trucking company. I know I work with truck drivers, intermodal trucking company for 10 years. So I was over the department that handled their driver payroll and all the maintenance on their equipment. So if you want to talk 18-wheelers, I get really official. But they would call in. We had a lot of Hispanic drivers, and they would call in, and I'd be like, "Un momento, no dinero," and they're like, "Oh, okay." One moment while I get
I took Spanish and French in high school. I wish I would have took it more serious. And I remember the first time I was in France, I tried to. I could not wait to go to McDonald's and order a Royale with cheese. You know where that came. You know exactly where that came from, right? Royale with cheese.
I think we've digressed, haven't we? I'm sorry about that, Angel.
Oh no, we're good. Listen, it's bonus time. We gave some folks an additional 16 minutes here to show. But again, when you have a show within a show, that's the best part. And that's why I wanted the Fifth Quarter podcast and us to be here tonight together, because that's the reason why I wanted to make sure that not only are you guys obviously on Spotify, but we're
on Apple too. We're on Apple and Spotify.
No, it's even better. So and that's what you want. It's a collaboration. That's why I say when you network with people, and as I continue on, I just added Haley. She's on as well with her podcast. There's a couple other folks that are going to be coming on onto the network as well. And it's just, it's because the vision, you have to have it to make it work and put things together. And I think even with you guys, like I said, once a month, getting together and doing a review of the show. And yes, Ryan, you will have some homework to do. So, get ready. But, getting together once a month, because then it makes it fun, because people get to hear two different shows on a network.
Well, sure.
And that's what makes it even better. So, listen, Michael, thank you again for your time. We do appreciate it. And the next time,
it was my pleasure. I enjoyed myself.
Matter of fact, the next time when we all get together, bring your sons on, and then we'll have a 5-minute element show on the Spanish side of the house, and then they can translate for you. Dad hears exactly what we're talking
about. Next time we're on the show, I got a great story, man, about.
Don't give it away. Don't give it away.
About me and my son on scooters, and we were in Cozumel, and we tried, and a cop tried to extort us. So
give it away.
I won't give it away, but it's a great story.
Right. Well,
un momento, por favor. That's what it is. Un momento, por
favor. Maybe we'll call it overtime, or either.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Overtime. Yes.
Yo quiero Taco Bell.
Okay, now show off, Ryan.
Where's your Chihuahua?
I was just going to say, where's the Chihuahua?
So I will say, someone taught me a word in Russian the other day. I can't really. It's not.
Oh. Danger, Will Robinson.
We'll say for the post-game conference.
It's not. It's not for public.
That's okay. We'll save it for the next time, or at least after the post-game show. That's what we're for. Listen. Thank you to everyone who listened in tonight here on Sports Radio 102.9 FM. The Game, of course, you guys can download the apps. They are available on the Apple and Google Android store, the Play Store, so you guys can do it that way as well. You can also look at it on the broadstsouth.com under sports radio towards the middle part of the page. You guys are able to take the links right there. It makes it even easier. Therefore, you can also listen in on the Fifth Quarter podcast, available on Spotify and on Apple Music, as Sandy has stated before. So there's many different shows, many unique shows. Always tune in because you never know who's going to be joining the network and seeing what happens. So we can all have fun. And as we just stated this evening, the overtime show that we'll have once a month. So everybody can come back and hear.
We just created another show. Yeah.
There we go, right there. I'm looking forward to it. And you know, guys, Sandy, she will be on this. So just so you know, she's going to make this happen.
That's good though. That's exactly what I hear. And but hold on. Before I end the show here, will we get Southern Sandy or Tennessee Sandy?
Which Sandy we're gonna get, y'all?
I don't know. Never know. We can just flip a coin. I don't know what you're gonna get.
That's all right though.
But it will be fun.
It sure will be. That it will be. And as also, we're 5 episodes away from the biggest one, the 200 episodes, as we continue on and continue growing the network. 3 years into it, season 4, the NFL season starts. We all know it as the KC Chief is in the house as well. So soon, things will be ramping up over at Tampa Joe's. We also can't thank him enough for being with us for the last 3 years, along with Philly Sports Trips, Pete's Famous Pizza, Mustaki Heroes, and the support from Penguin Pretzels, along with Krabby's Beachside over at Tropicana Field. And so there's going to be more videos coming out from there as well as that starts ramping up. And there is a video that's coming out. I don't know if the bonus one is, but I did one outside the Yingling Tampa campus, and I heard some footsteps behind me. And I thought, oh boy, I better wrap this up. And I turn around and say security, and I look, oh, it's security. Hey, what are you doing here? So he got into a conversation with me. It was a good conversation. Didn't throw me out, but it was a lot of fun talking to him, and he's a good sports fan, and he said he was tuning in tonight. So if you are tuned in, hey, thanks for not kicking me off the campus there, as I made a video while I was delivering something. So it's always fun. But nonetheless, thank you all for tuning in once again on AMP Radio, Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, right here on BroadStreetSouth.com. And with that being said, for my lovely fiance over in Studio B, Debbie, for Ryan Neff, Michael Wilson, Sandy Adams from the Fifth Quarter podcast. We hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Next week, there's going to be 2 shows. Pay attention to the promos on social media. One is going to be a throwback from a gentleman who worked for Nike who has been dying to tell many stories. The other one, if you're into steroids, I'm just saying there's going to be a major blockbuster event that's coming up here on Wednesday night. So you guys might want to tune in that one as well. Al Thompson will be with me. And that one is going to be a power-packed show that's going to be leading into about 3 or 4 different segments. So, and he is in DC, and we'll talk about it. There's a lot to get into when it comes to steroid era. So if you guys want to hear a lot of stuff, and I don't want to talk about the stars that are involved as well, but just tune in on Wednesday. That'll be at 8 o'clock on Wednesday night. So with that being said, I hope you guys end up enjoying the rest of your week, the weekend. Please take care of yourselves and take care of one another. And with that being said, thank you all and have a great night.
Bye.
Go team.
I always say that.